The 49ers beat the Chicago Bears 38-13 in convincing fashion in a much needed victory because they were on a 3-game losing streak. The last 2 games, they got blown out by at least 25 points, and the 49ers needed to show themselves in the NFL that they still know how to win in convincing fashion, that they can still control the ball at the offense and defensive line. Now, what was interesting about this game, before we go into specifics, is that the Chicago Bears were only able to muster up 68 yards rushing against the 49ers. Going into this game, everyone knew that the key to attacking the 49ers defense is on the ground. The 49ers defensive line has been atrocious all year, have not been able to stop the run, and their strength is on their pass defense. But also one of their biggest kryptonites on defense is also against mobile quarterbacks. Mobile quarterbacks, that's right. You run options with the quarterback. If you move the pocket, if the quarterback can extend the play, that's the 49ers kryptonite. And surprisingly, Caleb Williams only rushed 4 times, and he had 27 yards, so he was successful when he did run. But DeAndre Swift only rushed 14 times for 38 yards. I think the Bears abandoned the run too early in this game and went to passing, in which case the 49ers were able to slow that down. And honestly, the story was all about the offense. But that's what was surprising, is it seems like the Bears didn't do enough homework on what the 49ers kryptonite is on defense, because the biggest vulnerability is against the run and mobile quarterbacks, and they didn't capitalize on those things. Now, to their defense, they just let go of Matt Eberflus, and so you had Thomas Brown, who was the interim coach this week, and so yes, there's probably some grace there, but most of the league knows that the 49ers' biggest issue is against stopping the run. And so that didn't happen. The 49ers took care of business and won this game in convincing fashion. Were even able to pull out some starters at the end, which is great because they play right around next week on Thursday against the Rams, which is another must-win game. Now, a few people that stood out. Let's go ahead and just start off with the man himself, George Kittle, who had 151 yards receiving off of 6 catches and caught all 6 targets. Was absolutely a beast, was featured in the entire offense, which the question has to be asked, Kyle Shanahan, why did we wait so long to feature George Kittle? He's obviously having one of his best years, but it seems like there's certain games where he isn't featured as much as he should be. He has 800 yards receiving, which means with 4 games left, he's well on his way to another 1,000-yard receiving year as a tight end, which is amazing, especially being the 8th year in the league. He is also the 3rd fastest tight end to reach, I believe, 8,000 yards receiving within 8 seasons, I believe, behind Antonio Gates and Travis Kelce. So great company to be a part of. George Kittle needs to be the focal point of this offense. I know there's questions about, is next year going to be a rebuild year? He's one of the key people you need to keep around. Yes, he's 30 years old. Yes, the way he plays is going to wear and tear. But not only does he still produce on the field when he's targeted, but also he's a leader in the locker room. He's the face of the franchise. And so you need to keep George Kittle around. Next up, Jawan Jennings. Jawan Jennings is more and more proving that he is the number 1 receiver on the team. Now, yes, he doesn't have breakaway speed, but the way he plays the game, the way he goes, there were a couple tip passes that could have been intercepted, but he is the one who essentially said, I'm taking this ball. He's the one who says, I want it. Where in other cases, we've seen Debo be around a tip ball and it gets intercepted. Now, Jawan Jennings, the way he plays, that's how you want all receivers to play, which is perfect for Ricky Pearsall to see. Speaking of Ricky, he had 1 catch in which he went over in the past 3 games. So props to Ricky Pearsall, even though he did cause the holding penalty that prevented Brock Purdy's rushing touchdown. But at least he's making progress. But let's switch sides and let's talk about the defense a little bit. This game, the 49ers defense racked up 7 sacks. That's right, 7 sacks, with your Yetur Gross-Matos leading the way with 3 sacks in this game, which is great because there were a lot of questions. Is Nick Bosa going to play? He would, instead of being ruled out, he was ruled as doubtful. And then Sunday morning, obviously, this morning, he was ruled out for the game, which is good. You don't want him to rush back, especially if there's a slight window that the 49ers can still make the playoffs. Because if there is, you're going to need Nick Bosa to be healthy. And the fact that Thursday night is against a divisional opponent, you need to win this game. It's also in conference. You'd rather have Nick Bosa in that game. And the 49ers should have won this game against the Bears, and they did. They took care of business, which gave Trent Williams and Nick Bosa a couple extra days to try to get healthy for a very important game on Thursday night, in which case Dre Greenlaw should be making an appearance as well, as that is the target date for them to get him back. Leonard Floyd also had 2 sacks in this game, so it's good to see him show out. He's had several games where he's gone 0-4 when it comes to the sack column, but he showed up. And so it's great to see the defense start moving the ball. Fred Warner, we're still wanting to see more, even though the defense did their job. He only had 3 tackles this game. And again, a lot of it could be attributed to the defensive line. The defensive line not being able to keep the blockers off of the linebackers, which is honestly why opposing offenses can run the ball. Because if the defensive line cannot take up the offensive linemen, then those offensive linemen are getting to that second level to block the linebackers. And so hopefully we begin to see more. Again, it could also be a case of Fred Warner still dealing with that ankle, with that fractured ankle. And so is that fully healed? Is that going to be something he has to deal with the rest of the year? Luckily, it didn't have to come down to anything more to where you needed from him. The 49ers were able to play team football, swarm the ball. And let's talk about it. Talanoa Hufanga was back in the game and replaced Jair Brown, which I think was a great decision by Sorensen. So credit where credit is due. Even though he was playing with the club, I think they saw enough from Jair Brown where there were missed assignments. He wasn't in the right spot. Again, I still have hope for Jair Brown, but let's face it, Talanoa Hufanga has the tape. Talanoa Hufanga has put things on his resume. He was an All-Pro in 2022. And so, yes, that was 2 years ago, but I think they figured one-clubbed Talanoa Hufanga is better than the two-handed Jair Brown. And that showed today. Talanoa Hufanga was flying across the field. He made a couple key stops at the goal line. And so you'd love to see that. And we'll see what happens going forward. Hopefully Jair Brown can come back into form. We don't know what that's going to look like. Again, sophomore slumps aren't uncommon in the NFL. So we'll see what happens. Now, let's talk about some areas where we saw areas that need improvement. Colton McKivitz is still Colton McKivitz. A few different pressures throughout the game. Colton McKivitz is an above-average run blocker. But when it comes to pass protection, he is at the very bottom. Jake Brendel is an average run blocker. But when it comes to pass protection, he is the worst-ranked center in the game. And that showed again this game. You saw Brock Purdy go out for a play because for whatever reason, the offensive line still cannot protect the quarterback. That has to be a priority this offseason. You have to invest at right tackle and center in this offseason. Unfortunately, Ben Bartch went out and could be out for the year with the high ankle sprain. He started showing promise because you have to start thinking about left guard. You know, the right guard's shored up with Dominic Pooney. He looks like a great pick who's going to be here for years to come. Trent Williams, who knows how much tread he has left on his tires. He said he wants to play till 40, but he hasn't played in the last 3 games. Hopefully that's something that can be worked out. But let's just say Trent Williams, best case scenario, can play until he's 40. You still need a left guard. You still need a trustworthy center. You still need a good right tackle. Right now, on the offensive line, you have Trent Williams and Dominic Pooney, who are pretty good guys. And Ben Bartch started showing promise, and now he's potentially out. Have the 49ers seen enough to be able to say, you know what, we can't re-sign Aaron Banks. He's going to sign somewhere else. So we just pencil in Ben Bartch. He's 26. He potentially could be an upgrade over Aaron Banks. We don't know yet. But there definitely needs to be some movements at the offensive line, because if Brock Purdy is going to be your franchise quarterback, and he showed today, if he plays the way he did today the rest of the year, there's no question to think that he's not going to be the franchise quarterback. You have to protect him. That's the reality. I'm assuming Brock Purdy's not going to ask for 60, but if he gets 40, 45, you still need to have offensive linemen to protect him, because it doesn't matter who you have in the backfield. If you don't have anybody protecting the quarterback, they're not going to be able to get it in the receiver's hands or audible that protection, because if you can't protect the quarterback, you can't move the ball. And so I think there's still a lot of things to learn from this game. Yes, they showed out. Yes, the offense has done something that they haven't in a long time, which is keep Brock Purdy clean for most of the game. Brock Purdy threw for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy showed out in this game. So much so that they brought in Brandon Allen. Brock Purdy's is over 3,000 yards, which means he's well on pace to potentially get over 4,000. Again, he had 145 QB rating. There were a couple batted balls. Again, he had 5 missed targets, but you know what? He did what he needed to do. 80% completion percentage, 97.1 QBR. That's the Brock Purdy from old, and that's the one that you hope shows out. But I think a lot of it also is dependent on the plays that Kyle Shanahan calls. This game, Kyle has called more screen passes than he has in the previous 12 games combined, which is unbelievable when you think about it, because that's their bread and butter. That's how you have the Yak Pros, because you get the guys in positions to where you set up a few blocks and let their playmaking ability do the rest. So I think if Kyle can maintain this the rest of the game or the rest of the season, maybe you win 3 out of the next 4 and you get lucky and sneak into the playoffs. Anything can happen. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the most important game is against the Rams, which is this week. The Rams took care of business against the Bills, which makes it a little bit tougher for the 49ers, but also the Cardinals couldn't take care of the Seahawks. The 49ers really needed the Bills to beat the Rams, and they needed the Cardinals to beat the Seahawks. Neither of those things happened. And so it put the 49ers in a rough spot because they're still 2 games back, and because they've lost 3 games in division, they need some help. Now, luckily, the Seahawks do have a couple of tough games coming up, but the 49ers still need to continue to win. Even if the 49ers win the next 2 and then the Rams win the next 2, the reality is it's still 1-1, and it's going to come down to the conference record and then the division record. And the fact that the 49ers have lost most of their games in conference, that doesn't bode well. So if they want any shot, they got to win out and be 10-7, and even that might not be enough. But they need to start off by taking care of the Rams and hope for a little luck. And that could still happen. You never know. Stranger things have happened. The years that the Giants beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, they were a wild card. And so, again, things can still happen. And I think that they're on the right track if they can continue to play the way that they did here. So props 49ers for taking care of business against the Bears. Yes, it was the Bears. Yes, the Bears were 0-5 on the road. But still, this is a key for a good team. You don't play down to the opponent. You need to win the games that you're supposed to win. And that's what they did this game. So hopefully they can celebrate tonight and then tomorrow get back to work, because they have to turn around really quick Thursday night to play the Rams in a game that they need to have. And you know that the Rams want it too, because they're eyeing the same thing. They have the same record as the 49ers. And if they win out, they have a potential to sneak in as a wild card or even a division champion. So we'll see what happens. But 49ers, great job today. Keep it going. And we'll see how Isaac Arendo's doing, even though he had a good game, but it looks like he's potentially out. X-rays showed negative, but still was favoring his leg. So it could be Jonathan Taylor. And who knows, maybe a call to Matt Breida could be happening here in the near future. But the 49ers keep rolling. You didn't need the run game today because you featured George Kittle. Keep doing that and you'll win games. And that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.